I've got you under my skin. I've got you deep in the heart of me, so deep in my heart that you're really a part of me.
Michael Adzema is an author, activist, teacher, psychotherapist, specializing in primal therapy, breathwork, and rebirthing. He was the editor of Primal Renaissance, a professional journal of primal psychology, and was the first person in the United States to teach prenatal and perinatal psychology at the university level, which he did at Sonoma State University in the early 90s. In the early 80s, working as an anti-nuke activist with Oregon Fair Share, he was one of the small group of people whose actions led to the lawsuit that ended nuclear power plant construction in the United States. Over the last 15 years, Michael Adzema has managed and authored a number of popular websites and blogs, including Primal Spirit, Becoming Authentic, The Great Reveal by the Planetmates, and Apocalypse No, Cultural Wars, Class War, and Things That Want to Be Said. In addition to Funny God, within the past year he has authored and published the books Planetmates, The Great Reveal, Wounded Deer and Centaurs, and that's in 2015. Fall from Grace, 2014, which has been listed as a reference on prenatal and perinatal psychology. In the 90s, he authored the books Primal Renaissance and Apocalypse, or New Age. In 2013, he completed and published his books Experience is Divinity, Apocalypse No, and Culture War, Class War, and the companion volume to Apocalypse No, entitled Apocalypse Emergency, Love's Wake-Up Call. The works above including Primal Renaissance and Apocalypse or the New Age, was part of his Return to Grace series of 10 volumes, which are being produced and published in 2013 through 2015. At this writing, there are 2 more books in the series forthcoming. He currently lives alternately and nomadically in Eugene, Oregon, and the Los Angeles area, with his beloved wife Mary Lynn Adzema and their wise and devoted friend Muff, aka Silly Cat Muff, and a cat anthropologist, a planetmate of the feline persuasion. In 2009, Michael quit his workshop and private session work to develop full-time writing of his 10-plus books today. His passion is to saturate this world with the newest understandings of what primal therapy is, how it works, and to the actual results one gets from doing emotional release work, along with other integrative processes. He is by no means finished with his writing and has drafts for 10 more books and 20 more in the planning stages. This amount of depth of knowledge is a testimony to what happens when you work your adult life with core energy and primal feelings. Yeah. My name is Mike Harrell, and I have a workshop teacher training on YouTube called Language Lessons of the Heart. Today, I'm very pleased to be doing an interview with Michael Adzema. Adzema. Right. And he is like a world authority on primal release work, emotional release work, and pre and perinatal child development. So, and since one of the core teachings of the processes that I do is emotional release work in various forms, connected to other processes, 4 processes. And emotional release work has been exploited, it's not in people's awareness. how good that is and what a beneficial thing it is to do, and how it helps your evolution. So, and also, as from the introduction, you've written a ton of books. So perhaps we could start off with your view of how emotional release work works, and the kind of results that you could get from doing primaling and emotional release work.
Well, it's pretty revolutionary. It takes normal counseling and kind of goes in a different direction, which this time actually works. I mean, I think Jana would agree. I'm sure Jana would agree that the normal talking and counseling, it's a lot of it is involved. A lot of it is actually covering up the feelings, and even the superficial things that might be done, the acting, the rituals or the role play or whatever. A lot of that is just covering up the feelings. People think they're making progress because they look like it, they're moving and everything like that, perhaps, or they're talking about the things, but they're not feeling them, and that's the difference. You got to feel them. You don't know until you really feel it, and what I mean by that is you got to stop the acting out. You got to stop doing things about your feelings and feel them instead. And when that happens, it's a whole different world. Very often what we found in people in Primal is that they've done a lot of the other things and it was futile. And then they came to Primal and then they finally got what they were looking for. And what they get is a deeper self, a truer self. It may not be the self, it's a fragile process. It goes on for years. It's a many lifetime process, because this is actually the same path. This is the same journey as liberation, and that's part of what I'm adding is that this primal does take you in a direction of liberation, and eventually. So there's lots of primal rewards along the way, far more than Jana was aware of.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was still in a little bit of the training wheels, even though he did it for years and years.
Yeah.
It didn't get out into the public where other practitioners were able to explore. Well, my saying is that healing, emotional healing, and evolution is the same thing.
Exactly.
And so those people who want to ascend and get to a higher place or whatever it is, you're pretty much going to have to go through these barriers of what's holding you back.
Well, yeah, that's very close to what I'm saying too. In fact, I talk about a lot of my theories have to do with devolution. That the normal way of growing, the normal path of child development, human development, is actually a process of devolution from a essentially divine state, which we had before we came here.
Mm-hmm.
Before we came into this form. And that that's what I call the falls from grace, is that there's 4 falls from grace, and the first one is at conception, or more accurately, it's when we take on the form, sperm and ovum, like when we take that on, that's the beginning of the first fall, because from there we've separated out from divinity, and we have form. We don't have time yet, but we got form. Then later on, towards the end of gestation, we have another fall, which is when in the 3rd trimester we start to have hypoxia. A poisonous placenta begins to is older, it's more calcified, you're not getting enough oxygen, and you go through hell. I call it prenatal hell. We go through prenatal hell for a lot of the last 3 months of gestation. That's the second fall, because at that point we're blissful in the womb, and then we hit this prenatal hell, and then which leads eventually to birth, which is which is traumatic also. But we hit this prenatal hell, and we don't want to be there. So what do we do? Before it was blissful. We had space, no time, eternity. Then we get to prenatal hell, and it's like, we can't escape. We can't run away from that. We're stuck in the womb. So where do we go? Well, if we can't handle it, we create something called the past. And in creating the past, we've created a future. In other words, our mind splits, creates time, and we wish to return to that time that was blissful. So we've created time. And we also hope for something, maybe not then, because you might not know what to hope for. But I guess you do, because you want to return to that time. You remember it and you want to return to it. So there's your past and your future. So that creates time. That's the second fall. And that birth will be included in that. And then there's a third fall where we're much more closer to divinity and much more authentic when we're young, when we're infants, when we're toddlers, and we want to be acknowledged for who we are. And there's some really good parenting going on, which will facilitate that, support that. But most parenting is not like that. Most parenting is about creating for the parent a mini me, a little me, somebody like me, because people mostly do not fulfill their lives. So they have a sense of unfulfillment, and they have a child to take off from to do what they couldn't do, to do what they were not strong enough to do, real enough to do. So the child becomes their immortality project. This is how, instead of having liberation yourself, you'll have a child. Okay, so you have to put your imprint on that child. That's not the child being unique for itself. It's not the child being authentic. So that's the third fall, when the child finally, after years and years of being told it's not okay the way he is or she is, finally succumbs and says, I'll do what you want. Just, give me something. Give me something already. So that's the third fall. Then we have a fourth fall. So this is stages of devolution in our lives. Then we have a fourth fall, which is when we take even that, we still have kind of a magical childhood, even up the age of 7, and then we could still have more awareness, more openness to the world. And then we have to take all of that and we have to funnel it into something that will make us a dollar, which will be accepted by society, all the things we call adulthood. Every culture puts their imprint on the child. And that's the fourth fall from grace. So there's your 4 falls from grace. And then the purpose of life is to reverse that all. And there's primal therapy. Primal therapy is a process by which you reverse all that. And it does go all the way back to conception. People have been able
And before.
Well, yeah, that's right. But yeah, I and others have past life memories. We have sperm experience. We have ovum experiences, and it's not me. It's and there's all in different aspects of pre and perinatal psychology, and even going back 100 years to Otto Rank was saying some of this back then. Nandor Fodor was talking about even more profound stuff about going on in the womb. And then we find out that there are people who are having, a lot of it broke out in the 50s with LSD, because LSD was this catalyst to open people up with, beyond what their spiritual practices could take them. And so on LSD, both with Stanislav Grof and with Frank Lake, and I suppose other people were experimenting with it, people were starting to have feelings that go back to the first trimester, to being a blastocyst. Now, I can tell you that was not my route. I took Primal all the way, and I experienced all that without LSD. I'm just saying that this opened it opened up to science. It opened this up as a real possibility, because it's able for anybody's able to do this. Potentially anybody's able to do this, even if they don't do Primal. So these are realities that we get to in various ways. Regardless of the journey, the destination could be up there.
One of the great things about that sort of LSD and peyote and all that kind of stuff was it gave the people who took it, mescaline, a clear schism between what was the reality before, and then there was this other thing, and that gave you a choice. And before that, you didn't have a choice. It was just you being you. And to me, that was a pretty profound, in my life, it was pretty profound to know that there was the other self, another range, another door to go through. It's very profound. Because if you only have one door.
I know what you mean. And that's often what I've heard people say that, and I've repeated it, is one of the benefits that some people have gotten out of. I didn't require LSD for me, but I know that some people with LSD were able to experience a kind of being in the world that was, happy for the first time, and they didn't even know what happiness was. They were experiencing joy, they were experiencing bliss, they were experiencing a really friendly universe, and everything prior to, everything about their lives, and most of our lives are that way. We're told that be afraid of everything. So some people have actually had this experience where they were, for the first time, not afraid. I've heard this many times. And so what I like to say is that these drugs can give you a taste. Now, a taste of where to go, which provides a direction, as you were just saying. Which provides a direction. Otherwise, you don't know where to go. You don't even know what's possible. Now, I did this in Primal myself, and one of my theories has to do with the pain grids, the joy grids, and the spiritual grids. And what I've discovered in myself and in my clients is that there is pain that we act out of, beginning at least just before we're born, in the last 3 months, beginning at least then. There's some pain even at conception, but there is. Sometimes many people cannot find a good time in their life until they actually start to experience in the womb when it was blissful. They have to go that far back.
Well, this is what holotropic breathwork and rebirthing was a big deal, and I think it was the 70s. Really, it was when it got to my side of the world. It is a big deal because you can go back and then relive in a kind of almost 3D way.
Well, you can relive and you can get rid of pain. But what I'm saying is that this is something that was not included in the early primal. You're right. In holotropic breathwork and in rebirthing, there was an opening there, a possibility, or maybe even an emphasis to get to something positive. Whereas Jana was like, if it was positive, it was just you're acting out the pain. So what we found out, though, is that after we had felt through our pain, we made all the connections and everything, and we still continue to have non-ordinary states of consciousness happening spontaneously. And what we found out is that they took us into more and more positive and joyful and happy places. And then when we found out, and this is what was amazing, was that there was a lot of people that were feeling these their pain, and they were like, oh, now I can do this in my life because that what I was doing was out of my pain. So I shouldn't do that anymore. So I'll do the opposite of it. So when you did the opposite of it, then lo and behold, doing the opposite of it made you feel like, oh my God, I was doing something wrong because I wasn't doing what I had been doing before. The point is, you get thrown back into the same pattern from either not doing it or doing it. And what you don't have, goes back to what you were saying earlier, what you don't have is an idea of something different to do it's not caught up in the whole complex. So people would finally get into their joy grids, and they would find out what really makes them happy. And they didn't know before. What they were doing to make them happy was all tied in somehow with what happened to them at their birth, what happened to them just before birth, what happened to them with their mother in early infancy, what happened to them with their mother and father later, what happened to them with society. It was all tied in with that. So you don't know what to do. You can't just figure it out with your head. It's not like you're going to come to this conclusion, especially when we live in a society where we are told that, there are damn good reasons to be afraid of everything. And if everything in our society, other people, but also the universe is unfriendly. Einstein asked, is the universe friendly? That's the main question. Most people would say it's not. you know, talk to people who are into religion or existentialists, and they think, you know, there's nothing, and there's a devil out there and all that. It's very fearful. You'd ask originally what the benefit is. That's one of the biggest things, I think, is to get rid of that, is to feel through, to realize that you don't have to be afraid.
Well, you know, you have this descent of man, the descent into from a unity, from a unity where there's love, into the material world, the human world, the relationship world, the parental world. And what I think is, what the words that I use is evolution. Not evolution, is incarnation.
Mm.
And it's the same basic idea that you're talking about, except that you have to go through these levels of coming into the body. And it's not until you get fully into the body that you can begin to actually turn around and make your incarnation, because everything is disassociated when you're little. There's denial, there's disassociation, and not dealing with your shit, because you don't even know what it is. And then later you're living programs and stuff. But eventually you have to, part of going into like the dark night of the soul and into the primalings is to incarnate into that, and you embrace that, own it, and then it can become integrated into you. So to me, it's like a kind of incarnating the wholeness of the whole picture.
Going into your body.
Yeah, into your body.
I agree, but I think I would I would tweak what you said a little bit. That what you're talking about, what the end result was. In the end result, we are not in our body. But you're talking about when we were very young and in infancy and so on, and it being dissociated. I think that is where psychology got it wrong. I think we're dissociated. I think we're confused after we've gone through all those processes of the descent. But that actually every time before that, we were clearer. We were clearer before. Just look at the way, I mean, it's like, this is a minor thing, but look at the way people are in like high school. Before they go off, they graduate from high school, they go off into the real world. All right, so you often find people who, they've left high school, and then they meet up with their friends again, and they go, what the hell's happened to them? They used to be happy, they used to be spontaneous, and now like they're just going to work. You know, they're looking for a mate. You know, they're trying to buy a house, and they're, you know, like they're Sisyphus. All of a sudden, they've lost so much that they had. People in grade school and high school are much more alive than our society makes them later on. And same thing with the primal scene. Before you succumb to whatever your mother or father, their image is what they want of you, before that, you're more alive. You're more alive, and you're trying to get them to accept you for who you are, and you know who you are. It's not like, oh, you're so confused and you need to have somebody come in there and tell you what to do. No, it's not that at all. You just need to be supported in who you are. The point I'm making is that we have an inner divinity that we lose as we go through the stages of development. They're not stages, they're D stages. They're steps down from development, and then we have to make the step back up again. So every stage before that, we were more aware. Now, it also ties in with, when I say the descents of man, I'm talking about human devolution. This is where it ties into Planetmates too. I don't believe that we're the smartest beings on the planet. I don't think we know who the planets are, who all the beings are. We are limited. And, we have this religious Judeo-Christian Muslim heritage that we have dominion, which is pretty good, convenient excuse to do whatever the fuck we want, and to be greedy, to rape the earth, kill off the Planetmates, torture the hell out of them. We have all these
dominion as a complete disassociation from our relationship with nature. What kind of dominion is that? And
we weren't always this way. We were in tune with nature at one time. And if you look back, even though that we call them savages and everything, and even the scholars sometimes still are going back and looking at them, looking down on them. And yet we're finding out that a lot of what they were saying about those people who lived way back then, a lot of it was very prejudiced. You know, I mean, after all, we came from a situation where just, you know, decades or hundred years before or something, we were killing them. We wiped out millions of people in Tasmania, millions of people in Ireland. You know, what we did in the Americas is genocide. It's a Holocaust. Millions and millions of people. And you know, and why? We had to have a justification that they were savage, barbarian, less than us. You know, it's just, it was a, you know, exterminating the Jews in the Holocaust. It was the same kind of thing. The Germans had to consider the Jews to be less than human. We did the same thing. The point I'm making is just the same with the Planetmates, the same with these other cultures, these primitive cultures. If you look at them, they have they're a lot more aware, and they may even be more aware than us. They have connections with nature, like you say, that we don't have. And I go in my book, Planetmates and Prodigal Human, Planetmates, The Great Reveal, Prodigal Human, The Descents of Man. I show how and why that happened. We started out as part of nature, primates. This is millions of years ago, maybe 10 million years ago. We went through this process where, because of things that happened in the Mesolithic area, it was hot. We had to leave the forest. We left the forest, and we got to the ocean and to the streams and so on, and we became aquatic apes. As aquatic apes, we lost our hair, and we learned to stand upright. We had to stand upright because we could go out further into water to forage. People who went out further into water to forage, or went out into the water to escape from predators, were more likely to live. So those were our progenitors. Those are our ancient ancestors, the ones who stood up. Standing up, after a while, after millions of years, became something we all did, but it changed the bones in the pelvis. They had a different structure now. And previous to that, we were, as primates, we were on all fours. So the baby, the fetus, would hang down from the mother, and it would have a lot more room in there. Okay, so what we did when we stood up, we changed the plane of the pelvis, and we constricted the pelvic hole there, so that it made birth harder. Now, we went through a period in our evolution where we saw that the pelvic bones were getting larger to make for an easier birth, and then they were getting smaller and back again, because there was almost like a competition between our needs to be in the womb as long as the other planetmates are, and our needs to get the hell out of the womb, because we're going to be too big if we stay in there too long. So what we did is we came up with a compromise where we have a 9-month gestation, which is less than half of what we should have, which is 21 months, if we were to stay in the womb long enough to have the kind of development that our nearest primate relatives have. We're the only species born premature. And also we're the only species born with birth pain, because not only were we born premature, but we were born premature, and it was hard. It was difficult. Any way you looked at it, it was difficult. And that's pretty much acknowledged. Our species is the only one with birth pain. So we come into the world with all this pain. We're born too early, not ready, and then it's hellacious at the end of gestation, because we got prenatal hell because of things that are going on with the placenta. Then we're born. So what do? As Jenna pointed out, a lot of the brain is involved in processing pain. So what happens? We got bigger brains. If we got bigger brains, we got bigger skulls. What happened? More birth pain. So it's this vicious cycle. And we get bigger brains, born earlier, much more pain, and then next, secondary altriciality, which means that the part of us, the part of the brain that was developed by our nearest primate relatives inside the womb under the direction of nature, pretty perfect nature, doing it over the course of millions and millions of years. But we do it out in society under the auspices of our parents, very human parents. And all of a sudden, we're not going to be perfect anymore. We're splitting off from nature because our parents are not going to give us exact things we need for our brain development the way our nearest relatives are getting it inside their womb. So that's where culture comes in. That's where language comes in. It's a substitute for natural development. All that we plot ourselves with is a substitute for natural development. As I point out,
the de-evolution.
This is a de-evolution. It's step by step. We start to have culture. It leads eventually to distrust, because we have this basic mistrust, having all this pain at our beginnings. So when we start to eat meat, we feel guilty about that. Then, so what we eventually go through all these things. You notice a lot of the early hunter-gatherers, they were so close to their pain that they developed all these rituals and so on to try and almost primally deal with their birth pain. But then civilization comes along. Then with civilization, you have a situation where you have the agrarian revolution and all that, where you can store up more. Some people can store up more things. They have storage. So some people can store more than others. When some people store more than others, they have more power than others, because they can do with that whatever they want, and they can bribe, so to speak, other people.
Yeah, so that's the dawn of the kings.
Yes, you have hierarchy in society. This is like something else you don't see in nature or in our primitive progenitors. So we have hierarchy. With hierarchy, we have people doing not what they want to do anymore, but what somebody else. So there's lack, authenticity goes out the door again. On top of that, then we start the men who are being oppressed and they're being humiliated in society, they come home and they start oppressing their wives and their children. It's like, oh my God, I'm so, all of their self-esteem is taken away in society, so they come in and they can feel better by beating up their wives. So we have misogyny coming out of this. And then, and I go on in my books, how this leads to religion. It leads to religion. It leads to the normal person in culture that loses themselves in the process of of developing and all that. And this is what happened to us. We have a devolution from nature. And if you think that doesn't mean anything, well, what it's led to is the fact that we're going to kill all of ourselves and take down with us all life on this planet. This is the way it's working. So it has some consequences, not just for our survival and the survival of all life on this planet, but we think we have higher awareness, when actually I don't believe we do. I think that they say instinct. We have a crazy legacy coming from science and religion that tells us that other life on this planet is so inferior to us. And they have this instinct which makes them like machines, where they'll do things that's programmed into their genes and all that. When actually, what is instinct? Instinct is a kind of a knowledge of things that are shared by a species. And I believe this is not so far off from what anthropologists and so on are saying, is that there's a kind of a shared mind among species.
Morphic field.
Huh?
A morphic field.
Yes, morphogenetic field. That's right. There's a morphic resonance, morphogenetic field. And so they're sharing information. We're not. We're doing everything second-handedly through words,
Ideas,
yeah. And they have it already. So they don't need to talk. We need to talk. That makes us inferior. Words is another way of separating us from the direct experience of reality. So you seem like you know about this.
Words in some ways chop up reality. You can take a tree, and then there's the leaf, there's the branch, there's this, and you keep chopping up the tree, and until there's nothing left, until there's just matter, and matter doesn't matter.
Right. And it chops it up, but it also puts a veil between you and it. Because when you're thinking about the word, you're not seeing it anymore. You're not experiencing that tree anymore. You're thinking tree. There's part of your consciousness that's involved in the words, in the letters T-R-E-E, and what all that means. You're not experiencing green thing in front of you, and the wind going through it, and the leaves moving. You're not experiencing that. You're thinking tree, and you want to use it, like you say. You want to use tree. and combine that with grass, and you're making plans for it, for God's sakes. Instead of experiencing reality, you're managing reality. You're like some grand divine, you're not divine, but you're some grand manipulator, some orchestrator of your sensations instead of having them. And as you know, in Primal, we reverse all that. We stop thinking and trying to figure things out, and we just feel what's in our body. That's how we can know for the first time ever how we had gone wrong. We couldn't know this before.
I'm glad you're talking about that because, like I said, I have this little teaching that I do, and I'm astounded that people really don't understand about doing emotion release work. They do not understand it. They don't grok it. The light bulb hasn't come on. Some do. Some, if you have the dark night of the soul, then you kind of have to learn it the hard way. But
yeah.
If you could talk a little bit about what is primaling, what is emotion release work, because people need to know this. They really do. And then all this stuff that you've been talking about is the descent, and then eventually we're going to talk about getting.
I wrote something up that not getting enough attention yet, and I think it to me it expresses just how you do primal therapy without in words. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read it.
Sure.
Let me get it. I have to go get it.
Okay, we'll just cut it. That's cool.
Okay, good. So as I was saying, we get to this point where we're not authentic by any means. We're separated. And we're no longer planetmates. And we don't have the advantages that we would if we were natural and authentic. So what I wrote was something about how to become natural again, or how to become planetmate again. So what do? Your frantic and pathetic attempts to block the process, to keep from falling, have failed. If you're lucky. If not, you have longer to tread on roads of futility until you are ready. And if you are, in order to realize and reconnect again with yourself, for starters, you must surrender your frantic trying to figure it out. You must stop believing in the demons you have used to help explain that which you cannot, because you have refused to see your horrible truths. Rather, it is more important that you stop trying to understand and to control. You must allow, at least for that moment, if it's arising, that you might actually learn something, that you might be taught. You must let go, at least for that moment, of your sense of all-knowingness, of your self-importance and any thoughts about how you might be appearing to anyone outside of you. At least for that moment, just give yourself at least this. You must give up. Just give up. You must let go. You need only stop looking outward and let yourself be simply aware of your body, how it feels. Look down toward it, into it, not out into the world of symbols and reflections and struggles of the mind. If you feel you cannot do that, if you feel it is impossible to feel anything or to get a feeling, guess what? You already are. That you cannot do it, I can't do it, is exactly the feeling. It is often the first one encountered. Give up trying to feel and realize what you already are feeling. That, my friends, is it. That is you. That is what you have been writing on all this time while looking for you. Give up. Stop looking. Let yourself be real eyes. You must only let whatever feeling there is in your body, which initially you might say or think is your mind or coming from your mind, to arise. Don't get caught up in where it is coming from. That is, you're analyzing again, trying to figure it out, trying to control. You can worry later about where such things come from if you want to, but you won't. For now, don't resist. Don't run away. Surrender. You need only let yourself feel whatever is there, even if what is there is the feeling that nothing is there. That is you too. That is a feeling. Just have it. Nothing's there. Have it. Nothing's there. Be who you are at that moment, and be it all you are able to, or all that comes. Now, how do you feel about having that? And that is the feeling too. How you feel about having the feeling. And how do you feel about that? Keep asking yourself. Be your answers. I'm frustrated. Be frustrated. And how do you feel about that? I can't do it. Yeah, you can't do it. And how do you feel about the fact you can't do it? Keep asking. You continue discovering you as you are, not as you were told to be. Think you are or think you should be. Oh, you don't think, feel you are good enough for this? Guess what? Surely you have it now. Yes, that is a feeling too. And how do you feel about that? You feel you are too good for this, that it is below you, that it is silly, difficult, crazy, weak, feminine, whatever. Surely you have this one, right? That's right. How does that feel? Be it. And how do you feel about the fact that that is how you feel? Oh, you will find out why you feel that way eventually. That comes on its own. You, again, don't have to figure it out. And eventually you will not have to feel that way either. That also comes on its own. Rather, it simply does not come anymore, that feeling. At times you will cry. You will weep and weep. No doubt you will cry. For along with the things that arise initially in you is the sadness of your disconnection from all that you really cared about in life. You will see clearly how you have become lost. You'll begin to remember what was important to you in childhood, and your heart will ache, seeing in your mind each step, each permutation across the years of your life, of your fall from that innocent. You'll realize how much you have lost of others, of yourself, of opportunities that are gone forever, never coming back. You might cry for a long, long time as it all becomes clear to you, as you expand your boundaries, becoming the bigger you, including all that you previously left out. As all those things you pushed it aside as unimportant, all your emotional attachments, your family, friends, and relationships, all your feelings about your endless treadmill in your world of struggling and sorrow, all your disappointments and missed forever opportunities, all the tragedies and assaults upon you from any corner are remembered by you, and you remember them. You might even get angry and want to rage. Let yourself for now. Do that. No, I do not mean allow yourself to act it out on someone else. Just like the crying, let it out. In a safe setting, just like the weeping, where you will not be disturbed and controlled upon, release it from all your body. Release it with all your body. You may yell out, bellow and rage fiercely, desperately, groan, even scream. It's no big deal. It will not harm you. You must learn now how to be taught, to be receptive. Let yourself get for a change instead of do. Let it come to you. Trust that something will come. Trust what comes. Watch as it comes. Reconnect with the rest of you, and then more rises up and dawns upon you. You might actually feel like parts of your body and your brain are reconnecting. You might feel surges of energy. Your body might jerk. You might have muscle twitches as the parts of your body and mind are snapping back into each other, making you whole. Similar, subtler feelings might occur of the upper and lower parts of your brain clicking back together. You might even imagine your inner wiring, your electrical connections between brain and body, rearranging itself, linking together and straightening along the length of your body. You might feel your body wanting to go through movements of its own, as if an alien thing had taken over it. This is nothing to be afraid of. That alien thing is really the larger you trying to heal itself in the way that it knows more than your egoic mind ever possibly could exactly how to do it. Your body-mind becomes whole in as precise and perfect a manner, as instinctual a manner, as a physical wound heals itself. It's that simple. You do not need to direct it. In fact, any attempt to push or guide this healing of soul only derails the process. You need only let go and trust, and you will feel comforted. Usually upon every release, with its realization and its reconnection, you feel a soothing arise in your body, an afterglow. You will feel in your body the easing of all those years of deprivation, aching, wanting, and struggling. You will feel you have come home. You will feel like you understand your life. You will not want to leave at this place of comfort. As you look all about you at all the efforts and empty achievements that have become your life and which take up all the activity of everyone around you, your process of becoming primal again, becoming natural, of reconnecting with your soul, with nature, with truth, with the unapproved and hidden, and with God and reality will take a long time. It might even require more than this life. You did not become crazy overnight. While you cannot unthink your insanity, neither can your will sanity into existence and simply decide it. If you think you have awakened and it happened in a flash, then that is just the beginning. You are probably only becoming aware of the abyss that exists. You have much further to go. It will take as long as it takes, and it does not matter how long it takes. The important thing is that you have given up trying to control it. You are allowing yourself to be taught by your inner guide in its own way and at its own pace. The practice of giving up trying to hurry anything along or direct it is part of what allows it to happen. The more you give up trying to determine who you are, the more you discover who you are.
Wow. That's a big wow. That is exactly what I wanted to hear. It's kind of like how to do it, what happens. Mm-hmm. And you know, I'm not such a wordsmith. And when I do workshops, I don't tell a whole lot of explanation. I just said, there's your feeling. Feel it. See what comes up. Let it out, whatever you're feeling now. And when you're in a group, then somebody's going to ignite somebody else, and then it pretty much is an organic thing. And you don't have to say, oh, try harder, or you don't have to say, you know, you're not getting it. You just let it go, you know. And then in a workshop, you do this maybe twice in one day, and then twice the next day, so that they get a chance to really feel without a lot of words. But that's exactly what I needed to hear, what I was hoping that we would get to in this this interview. Thank you. And
you make me realize another thing here. I mean, you said in the groups. That's the advantage of doing groups. If you don't have a good primal therapist, a bad primal therapist is going to be more directing, and it'll be more controlling and more suffocating in individual sessions. Whereas in a group, they're unable to do that. So groups help. Like you're talking about your group. It sounds like people go off on their own, and then they're triggered by people around them, but then it's their own process. They're not having some therapist outside telling them what to do, directing it, being the authority again. No, they have to rely on their own authority. There's nobody out there. They have to look here. And I think about that fact in that, you know, when I did holotropic breathwork too, one of the things that was really nice about that is there was nobody directing. There was music. There wasn't even a lot of talking, very little talking. You know, there was music, and you were told you were told to surrender into whatever came up. So you couldn't have some authoritarian outsider, some, you know, screwing with your process.
Even the breathing technique is not critical, because once you get going, it doesn't matter if you're doing the right way. It just happens.
That's true. You know, breathing technique is helpful if your defenses are not already broken down. But if you're already close to your feelings, you know. Now there is something to be said for the breathing helps you to tap into those joy grids faster, because you're giving yourself oxygen and everything. You're giving yourself a close simulation to what it was like in the womb before the oxygen starts getting reduced. Fetal malnutrition, prenatal malnutrition. We get bigger in the womb, and the arteries and nerves, they start being compressed because we have all this weight. It's pressing on the arteries and nerves, and it's reducing the blood supply. So we start to have what I call PME2, prenatal matrix of evil number 2, which is
say that again.
Prenatal matrix of evil.
I love that one.
The thing is, we have a certain kind of human evil that doesn't exist anywhere else in nature. We don't know any other existence of this. We talk about aliens coming from another planet or from another universe and acting like us, wanting to kill us and everything. No, that's us. You know, no, you don't see Planetmates going and doing what we're doing. They don't have holocausts. You know, and if they do occasionally murder us, but usually because these are the ones that were living close to humans and under stressful conditions where they started to do things that they don't do in nature. So so if you look at my book, Wounded Deer and Centaurs, and it's also coming out in the book, Dance of the Seven Veils, you'll see that there are these 4 aspects of what happens to us in the 3rd trimester. We're crowded, so that's PME1, crowdedness. We feel, and it ends up coming out in ways like we have to war, like we have to go conquer other territories because we feel like we never have enough room, you know. It comes out when we get in traffic jams. That's why we have road rage. It's like, get out of my way, because we were crowded for 3 fucking months, or maybe most of that, or some of it. And then there was suffocation because we weren't getting enough oxygen. So we feel suffocated, and then in our world we feel like we're not going to get enough. Not just oxygen now. We're not going to get enough money. Somebody's going to take it from us. You know, those damn immigrants, they're coming to the country, they're taking all the stuff from us. What about our, and it really comes down to our oxygen. We feel like we can't get enough, so we have to, this is the roots of greed. Then we have PME3, which sensation of, since we don't get enough oxygen, the carbon dioxide in our system builds up a little bit more. It's not a lot, but it's discernible to a fetus, whose whole existence is there, and also very sensitive. So a fetus will feel like that there's a buildup of these poisons inside of it. It's kind of like, I call it bad blood. You feel poison, so you have the roots of paranoia, like, oh my God, these horrible things are coming into me. So you feel paranoid, and you think the whole world's going to get you. That's PME3. And I go through how like all of these things end up. We show this in history. You know, we have the Nazis acting out PME3, which is the bad blood and the poisoning, by taking the Jews, who they say, oh, they're taking their money. So what are they going to do? They put them in cattle cars. They crowd them all together. So they're starting to do to others what was done to them back then. Then they put them in gas chambers, and they do poison them. So we act these out. There's one more, by the way, just to complete that. PME4, which is prenatal irritation and burning, which is that we're not just taking in these toxins, it's all around us. So there's a sensation, and you know, I can tell you, it does happen. The placenta is breaking down at the end of gestation. It's becoming more calcified. It doesn't flow as well. So you're not getting enough oxygen. It's building up toxins, the byproducts of food conversion, and you're starting to feel like irritated, like your whole world is irritating your skin. We act this out in all kinds of ways. Some of the obvious ways we act it out is we get tattoos. Why are we doing stuff to our skin all the time? Is we got this underlying irritation it's kind of like an itch that you want to scratch. So you do tattoos. But there's so many other ways. We have phobias about germs. You know, we have phobias about insects. An insect, you know, jumps on us. It's like, you know, it's like, get away from me. So these are the prenatal matrix of human evil. This is our distinction from nature. Hmm. I'm sure we got some good things too. I think I have this
saying that what was done to us, what was done to us, we do to ourselves. And in government, the way that all governments work is planned trauma and stress denial. That means they make a separation, or they have a depression, or they have a war. This is planned trauma. Now, you can't do anything about that. So you feel the stress of the war or the depression or the 9/11 buildings coming out. You feel that stress, but you can't deal with it. So you sort of like take that in and deny it. So it's planned trauma and stress denial. And everything has this element that is very similar to what you just said, in that there's this trauma that you can't deal with. And it's because it causes stress, and then you deny it. And that's kind of why why would we have a government for 200 years that is perpetually at war? And we don't interface with that. We don't connect to that, because that stress has been denied, just like our birthing stress has been denied. Yeah. So planned trauma and stress denial.
Well, that gets into, like I wrote another book, Culture War, Class War. And the point about that, it takes it right into politics and so on. And
absolutely.
The way once you had these devolutions, I call them descents of man, because I say man, not to disparage women, but just because, actually to credit women, because women haven't made these descents as much. It's mostly, we live in a patriarchal society where the men are more fucked up. Men have made more of these descents. So I call it the descents of man. And as I was pointing out, with hierarchy, you lose authenticity. We invent work. We start doing things other people want us to do. That doesn't exist in nature. Nature, we come from what we want to do and what we need. But now you're doing something. It's kind of like somebody tells you what to do. It's called a job. And it's like they're saying, here, you eat this food for me, but you don't get to swallow it. That's you doing the job. And they get the results of it. My point is that this results in hierarchy. You got this and you got people above, as we evolved in civilization, who are determining what everybody below them does. Now that falls into what you were just saying,
but it also goes to our thoughts overriding our feelings. I'm a big one about thoughts and feelings. You know, the being in a thinking person and not a feeling person. So all that stuff is going on internally. So if we're in our head, we're not in our heart, or we're not in our will and our emotion about it.
And I guess that ties into what I was saying, because it's not in their interest. The people who are controlling us for us even to be human. You know, they're the only ones that are human. We are just supposed to be pawns. We're supposed to be cogs in their machine. That's what happened to us over the course of civilization. So the elite are going to determine all these things. And one of the things that they don't want us to do is to be sexual, have relationships, to have fun, you know, to be silly. All these things, they fuck with their perfect way of controlling everything so that they can reap most of the benefit. It doesn't help if you're a boss, say in an office, for somebody to be, you know, screwing around, playing around, you know, goofing around. No, get to work. That's what they'll tell you. But it goes all the way through. If you go back to the days of kings, they didn't want they wanted their subjects to stand there until they told them what to do, like there was some kind of an appliance. You know, so they didn't want them having lives where they might call in and say, "No, I was out all night with my girlfriend." We had a great time. They don't want that. They don't want you to be anything for you. There's your feelings, and there's the thought. They put the thoughts in you, and they use religion as the controlling mechanism to make you feel guilty for not doing what they want. It's quite a system that needs to be undone.
It's evil. It's evil.
It is, because you know what? It's the opposite of alive, A-L-I-V-E, or live. Live, L-I-V-E, is evil spelled backwards. Evil is live spelled backwards. It's the opposite of life. They want you to be unalive. That is evil. It's a definition of evil.
I think back to the Spanish Inquisition. It's like one of the things you said that we can't have. We can't have a spiritual experience that's based on nature. So that means the shamans, the healers, the witches, that has been genocided. Every country we've ever been in, we went to the healers, the wisdom keepers, the ones who have the knowledge of the natures, those who can connect you, those who can heal you, and who show you, like you say, the Planetmates. They say, well, you have the bear and the eagle. Those guys are killed. We killed them in every country that we've been in, and it was 600 years of that. 600 years of that in Europe, the Spanish and the Portuguese. So we have, and to me, when we talk about the morphic field, we have imprinted into us this extreme prejudice against anything psychic, anything paranormal, anything that would have to do with a supernatural, a healing, or a vision quest, or a vision. And you can see it. I've seen it whenever you have like a real strong Christian, right? Mm-hmm. They come up to you and you say, have you accepted Jesus Christ in your life? If you say no, I could care less, you can actually see a shock go through their body. And that shock came from their grandmother's 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 grandmother, who was, if you didn't accept Christ, if you didn't burn the witches, then your whole village would be destroyed. So so that the grandmothers were telling the children, you have to do this or you will die. Yeah. And that's to this day, that fanatic Muslim, fanatic Christian, it goes back to you either, you got your religion by the sword, which was planned trauma.
Yeah, it's quite a mess. That's why I talk about in my books how there was this devolution, and we went from a state that was separated from divinity, but not as separated as we are now. And by the time we get to here, after all the things like you're talking about, that's one of them. At this point, we do live in the matrix. We live in an artificial construct that benefits the people who are running the matrix. They're doing it unconsciously too. That's the only thing. It's like this all came from things that were decided down the line beginning millions of years ago. Nobody's at fault here, but it's just what happened. God only knows why it happened. But we do end up in a situation where we are the species that are most estranged from what reality really is. We live in the matrix. And that matrix that's what the whole purpose of the Dance of the Seven Veils, which is my book that will be coming out next. I'm talking about how we get out of the matrix and we have a encounter with actual reality, which is liberation. But we have to, in order to do that, we have to peel away these layers of obfuscation, beginning with anthropocentrism, and then what was done to us, in our identity stage at life, what was done to us at the primal scene, what was done to us in infancy, what was done to us at birth, what was done to us just pre-birth and the prenatal hell I'm talking about. We have to get down to that place back in the womb where we did have connection with divinity. Once we access that, we begin to have a taste, as we were saying earlier, about what being real is. Until we do that, we're still caught up in the matrix. The matrix. It's like everything you're saying is part of that matrix. There's so many dastardly parts of it.
It is disheartening, and it's one of the reasons why people don't want to look at it. They don't want to go in the dark door. They don't want to do the dance of the dark night of the soul.
Right.
But it's the only way to go at some point.
Well, anything else is just spinning your wheels. I mean, you can make the same meaningless motions forever, and you could have somebody telling you you're getting somewhere, but eventually you find out you're not, because you always end up in the same place you started at. That's why people inevitably come to this place where they have to feel this, because everything else doesn't work. It's just, those are just parts of the matrix. Even the healing systems in the matrix are meant to keep you in the matrix. And
we run on denial. I mean, we had to deny our pain in order to survive at a certain age. We had to. It was life or death. I cannot deal with this. And that goes up to 7 or 8 years old until whenever you start to become a rebel or you surrender. And that denial has not served us well for the remainder of our life, because once we shifted it under the table, until it comes at you like fate, like Carl Jung says, it comes at you like fate. Mm-hmm. And then you don't ever know what you've pushed under the rug. Mm-hmm. And that's the majority of our power to be free, our power to heal, our power to imagine, our power for joy, our power for memory. We deny our own memories, our cognitive power of what meaning is. What does this mean? Mm-hmm. There's a gap there. So you can't actually, like I said, the one of the war for 200 years, 230 years, we don't have the cognitive ability to engage that is so not right, that there's nothing in us that'll even marshals our, it did in the 60s when we tried to stop the war, but right now, the cognitive dissonance of denial is just too strong. We can't comprehend how bad it is. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, that's where we've arrived.
But there is heart.
One of my books is called Apocalypse Emergency, and basically I just talk about how we're in a situation now where the only rational response to it would be that it's an emergency and you'd be alarmed. If you look around and you see what's going on and you're not alarmed, you're not paying attention. But yet, like you say, you're not paying attention. You're blocking it from your view. You don't want to know. I talk about what's going on in the climate and environment and everything, and I get people, like friends and friends on Facebook and everything, and they say, "Why are you telling us this stuff? We don't want to know this." I said, "But you're going to die in your lifetime, or your children are going to die in their lifetime. Don't you care?" And they said, "Well, if you can't do anything about it, I'd rather not know." So what are you going to do? We got people who purposely do not want to know. But to see there's something wrong with that they don't realize is knowledge is power, like you were saying. There's an advantage to facing your pain or to facing the bad things about life. There's an advantage because you've got power. Like you mentioned Jung, and the thing about what you don't acknowledge comes back to you as fate. that's what we're doing, is we're not acknowledging these huge problems, and they're going to, we're in trouble.
No, that's to wrap it up.
Wake people up,
To wrap it up, it's the primal birth, and maybe at least the first 7 years. That's the primal stuff that happened then, that got suppressed, is exactly what's going on in the world. It's the
my God, yeah,
exactly the same. They just go hand in hand, even to our government. And who's that guy in the White House?
No, we are another part of the book. I'm talking about prenatal Earth. What we have done to the climate, we've created a situation in the globe with lowered oxygen, increased carbon dioxide, where we are recreating the hellacious situation we had in the womb. Crowded, suffocating, irritation, burning, my God, even to the point of having nuclear war. PME3 is poison, poisonous, sickening. My God, the pollution. Because we're not acknowledging, we cannot acknowledge, actually, without going through some kind of process, but because we haven't been able to, we are creating in the outside world what we need to experience internally. And Groff points this out too. He doesn't talk about the PMEs, but in terms of his framework, he points out that we are creating in the external world the kinds of experiences that people who go into deep inner spiritual work will experience in the inner plane. And so we've created, we're not looking at the inner, it comes out outside of us. And we've created a whole world that is trying to tell us, look inside,
Yeah. Yeah, it's scary, but but then it's liberating too, because, okay, you feel your pain, ouch, 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 cry, 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 and weep, 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 right? And then love, and then a compassion, and then like a gratitude. So
Exactly.
this stuff starts to bubble up, and it goes like, and then your veils fall out of your eyes, and it's like, the world's pretty nice. It's like, okay, so that was bad, okay, but look at all this beautiful stuff I'm feeling now. And a lot of people never get to that unless you go to the compressed stuff and let it come up. I mean, in one way, everything is love. So it's either compressed and distorted love, but when it gets uncompressed and undistorted and folds out, it becomes love again. And that money can't buy, and drugs don't really get you there. You pretty much have to unfold your own heart yourself.
And I think it's good you're bringing this up, because there is a positive side to all this. And I hate to say this, but I'm starting to recently come around to this idea that there's even a silver lining to this darkness of Donald Trump being installed as president. Because I'm from the 60s too. I mean, I was born in 1950. I'm exactly as old as you. And I went through all that, and I saw—
You're younger than me by 20 days.
What?
You're younger than me by 20 days.
You old man. So I mean, look at what's going on right now. I mean, you're talking about how we try to deny, and it shows up outside of us. Well, there's something there's something good about that, because when it shows up outside of us, we're forced into that dark night of the soul that nobody wants to go into. And in a way, as scary as it is, it's happening. We're doing it with the environment. We're doing it with politics. We're doing it with the international situation. We've got so many scary things going on because we're not doing what we need to do. But yet, look what's going on. We have more activism going on now than we've had since 2011 with Occupy, which was the most we've had since going back to the 60s. And why? Because we've got this horrible situation where people throughout the world are coming into power who have these fascist tendencies, and it's causing people to realize they can't just ignore it. People are going out in the streets, the Women's March, the March for the Climates, for scientists and all that.
We had one today.
It's going on worldwide. We live in the most exciting and dangerous and scary time that's ever existed in the world. So lucky us. We're fortunate enough to be living in interesting times.
I'll add this caveat to it that like Carl Jung says, if you don't deal with it inside you in advance, then you're going to have stormtroopers in the goddamn street. You know what I mean? You're going to have martial law and food shortages. You're going to have some, because listen, you've been around since the 50s and 60s, since have I. It has never been a year where it got better. Never been a decade where it got better. It gets worse and worse, more intense, worse and worse. Like right now, we're at war with 7 countries for no fucking reason. Right. And now they're trying to build a wall to keep us in, and it's just insanity. And then nobody's, so it's, you're either going to have to deal with it inside or outside. And I think, but the waking up part, there's a lot of people who are waking up. Yeah. Some of them who are waking up are going into the dark door. They're doing their primal work. It's not everyone, but some of them are. Yeah. And, there's ways of progressing that are short of primal. Thank God for that. I mean, and not, you can't cure yourself without taking this process, but certainly becoming cognitively aware of some of the things that's going on, and maybe even taking some action on them, is certainly progress in the right direction. And but I have to say, I think I agree with you 1,000%. I mean, I think those of us who've gone through the 60s and we saw this huge awakening, this opening to euphoria and to a different natural way of life. And we tried to implement it through the counterculture and all that. When we did all that, and what we've seen instead, going down through the decades, and especially when it starts with Reagan, that came in. It's like, what the hell's going on here? It's a reversal of everything we wanted to do. Conglomeration fucked us up.
Oh, yeah. That's why I talk about culture war, class war, is what the powers that be did to crush our movement. And you're right. And this is what's so disturbing to all of us in our generation when we see Donald Trump get into power, because he's the opposite of everything we were trying to have. Now we're in our 60s and we're going, did we fail? But no. The thing is, even though there's been this pendulum going on, and we've been going down, and to my dismay, we might have to get further down in order to really wake up. I mean, how much pain do people have to go through? How much suffering, how much misery, how much insanity, how much lies do they have to hear before they take a look at it and stop, do something about it, resist. But it's happening. So that's my hope in it,
Well, the Bolshevik Revolution, where they just killed what it was, 15 million people, that is on the table for America. It is on the table for America. You can't say that, because look, in my view, this isn't going to be a 6 weeks deal. This is another 200 years of this, of the unravel, either repair or the wind down to oblivion. It's going to go on, so either people move inside or they're just going to see it getting worse, because that's the only way it can go, is worse. They don't have any other option except to go worse, politically, economically, environmentally, with animals dying. So
the suffering is going to come quick. I don't know if we have that kind of that long of a timeline at all to live. Some climate people that I know about, I'm involved with, Guy McPherson's talking about we only have 18 months. I mean, I hope to God he's wrong. But whatever, it's an interesting time to be alive. And as I like to point out, there's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. But what's happening here is we have as many people alive right now, or twice as many people alive right now as has ever lived. What's that all about? Think about it. This is a time of being alive where there are all the geniuses down through history. Well, there's just as many of them alive right now. There's as much brilliance or more alive right now as has in the entire history of humanity. So we have this incredible potential. And I kind of feel like it's almost like everybody showed up to be part of this end or this beginning or this rebirth. I don't know. It's exciting. I think the only tragedies here are for those who don't take advantage of this opportunity to be, as I put it in Funny God, we live in magical times. These are days when we walk in, archetypal. We live in mythic times. And to not be part of that, I think I wouldn't want to miss out. I wouldn't want to miss out.
I'm a big fan of Kali Yuga. Yeah, that's a great metaphor.
Yeah.
To the fighting of demons, and Kali sucks the blood out of the demons because the blood is the will, is the soul of her children, and here again the thought and feelings, and then the only way that Shiva can calm her down is to lay prostrate before her, and when her foot touches him, then she snaps out of it. So there's this prostration of the man god to the rage of the great female corrector healer. And then Kali turns into Durga, which is the most loving god. I see that as a possibility too, and
I just
return of the goddess, put it that way.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility too. I mean, there's other ways of seeing that evidence for that. I don't know if you're familiar with Satya Sai Baba. I've been a devotee for decades of Satya Sai Baba, and and there's other ones. But basically, he at the end of the Kali Yuga, he and Shirdi Sai Baba and Prema Sai Baba is supposed to come next, are supposed to be an aspect of a changing of it all around again. The bottom of the Kali Yuga, and some kind of a rebirth, and it could happen. I don't know how. It's like environmentally, where some people say it's all over, but I don't know. You got to live.
I'm not worried about. Listen to me. That climate, what they call climate change, is a complete distraction. It's complete bullshit distraction. We can live with 10 times more carbon dioxide than we have now. And what is the distraction from? Is the pollution of the water, pollution of the rivers, pollution of the food. All those things are 1,000 times more urgent. We have animals dying in the ocean like never before. That is the big issue. It's not the CO2 in the air. It's been. In my opinion, compared to like birds falling out of the sky, and the pollution of the Mississippi River and the fracking, and to me that's why.
Yeah, but I think we may have to agree to disagree, but I think if you have these sentiments about these other things, I don't think you realize that they are connected to the amount of carbon dioxide in the air. It's not about breathing. We're warming the globe. The ice cap is melting. Antarctica is melting. We're going to have a rise in sea level.
I get all that. It's still
60 feet. And you mentioned about the oceans. What the acidity of the oceans is going to go up. It's going to eliminate the life in the ocean. And there goes the oxygen source. We're not going to have to worry about too much carbon dioxide. We're going to have to worry about no oxygen, or not enough to live on. We only have to take like about 0.5% less of oxygen, and we start to faint. And we've already, since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, we've already got less oxygen of 0.1%. It's noticeable, and now it's accelerating. We're running out of oxygen. We're going to run out of oxygen, and we're going to make the oceans acidic, and they're going to be 60 foot higher. And so, if you're not swimming or living on top of a mountain, you're screwed. And then there's
no question about you're right. You're right about all that. Absolutely.
They're all connected.
I'm just saying, it's like you got Flint, Michigan. I live in Florida, and they're fracking in Florida. And Florida's like a big sponge. Wherever they frack, it goes everywhere. And they've been fracking all over the United States. So every water supply in the whole United States is pretty much polluted already from the.
Oh no, we're screwed in so many ways. And we've got 1 million air flights a day. 1 million flights a day around the world. I mean, we're polluting the stratosphere. I mean, it's just unbelievable what we're doing. We're bringing our lives to an end in so many different ways. I mean, it's not even like climate change is my issue. My issue is the nuclear thing. What about putting things into the ecosphere that are like we've got thousands and thousands and thousands and tons of radiation that's gone into the ecosphere. It's maddening how much, when I looked into this, how much has been put into it. And just a tiny one bucket of it will kill everybody on Earth if it was evenly distributed. That's insane. That's insane. And so and then they say, didn't they show on TV that it's going to, like, if we can just hold out for the next 3 years or a year or something, or 5 years or 10 years, or even 100 years, that it'll all be back again. No, it's going to wipe out all life. And it's going to go on for 500,000 years. That's how long the half-life of plutonium is. And there are some radioactive substances that are even, the half-life is longer than the universe has been in existence. This is insane.
Insane.
And we're fucking with these things like we're mad, ship of fools and all that.
Well, let's bring this thing around, because everybody and their brother can get in on that one, because it's a big thing. But let's bring it back to emotional healing work. And
okay.
Because to me, I'm on the same page. It doesn't matter what the target is. You look in any direction and it's an emergency. Any direction, it's an emergency.
Apocalypse emergency, right?
So my issue is, how can we get people, to understand that when you do the Dark Night of the Soul, when you do your work, the emotional research, it gets better, and you get more loving, and you get more rounded, and you get more empathetic, and you get more authentic. A lot of people don't even know what authentic is.
Right.
You do get more authentic.
Well, that's how do you do that? There are many ways to approach people. I've tried myself to at least start the process with people by pointing out that this is not about saving yourself. This is about saving people you love. Apocalypse Emergency, the subtitle is Love's Wake-Up Call. My point is that if you were to realize that your house was on fire, you'd at least try to get your child out of it, or do something about it if your child was trapped in it. My point is, parents have an incredible love for their children and an identification with them. And even more than themselves, they will put their lives on the line to save their child. And yet we have their children are likely to die in their lifetimes, and they're going on as if it's not happening. So I'm trying to let people know that you could just come off of those normal human feelings of love. And does that motivate you? I believe if people were to know how serious things were, they would do something about it. I don't think a lot of them are going to do primal just yet, but at least it would be in the right direction.
I'm going to go to the little boys' room, because
I'd like to.
There's not enough in an hour and a half.
I know we've got a lot to talk about. Like you said,
I want to talk about near-death experience, afterlife, pre-life. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the physics of consciousness. There's a lot of stuff that's cool.
No form state, no formity. We have a lot to relate on.
Now, I'm an ex-yogi, so I had that going before I even did the first primal. And so I have that, the whole spiritual thing happening. Past lifetime memories.
I know.
I personally remember the earth cooling down. I remember the formation of the earth.
That's profound stuff.
It's the same thing as remembering in this lifetime how to ride a bicycle. It has the same weight.
I get it.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's cool, but then it's not really a function in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're theoretically we're capable of knowing all of this. It's just that it's not practical. That's why we don't. You got this information because you were open to it for some reason, and it came to you. And for many people, it just doesn't fit with the things they want to do in their life or have to do. It's not. But it's
Well, I'm friends with the people of the Edgar Mitchell Foundation for into extraterrestrial encounters.
Yeah.
And these are all PhDs, okay? They're doing surveys. They got PhDs to do the surveys. They got astrophysicists, and one of these guys, Dr. Rudy Shields, is like the head astrophysicist, one of these guys at Harvard. And so these guys have got all these degrees. And one of the things the conclusion they came to is that they don't know anything. Like, we don't know anything about the universe. We don't know anything. And that's kind of like their little mantra. But then they're investigating, ET contact, people who've had ET contact. And then they run into these ladies, like some little lady in Ohio. She gets taken by the ETs. They kind of like take her out and to show her the universe. And she says, you know, I experienced all this love. And then they did something to me where I knew everything. I knew absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And that's the polarity.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's one way of looking at things where you know nothing. And then there's
Yeah.
a polarity that you can actually get to where you know everything. It's like, oh,
Yes.
there's love. And then there's, oh, I know everything. That's a
Yes.
possibility. That's on
Yes.
the table.
You know, awareness is not a cognitive thing where you build things up. If you remove the barriers to it, it's all there. Because guess what? We all knew it at one time. We just forgot it.
Yeah. I think it was Osho or one of those gurus guys says, when you take and clean the mirror of the soul,
Yeah.
and you clean all the dust off the mirror of the soul, then it reflects what is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's wisdom. And I kind of have to ascribe to that it is our own pollution, or is their own dust in our own eyes that make our eyes squint, that is not the truth. There is another clarity that is happening inside of human beings that is far more subtle but far more powerful than our mentations and our imaginations led us to believe.
Agreed. That's basically, that's the theory, or that's the basis on which I'm doing the dance of the seven veils, which is that you take away one veil after the other until all that's left is reality. You take away one distortion after the other, like, you know, like William Blake, and it was repeated by Aldous Huxley. When the doors of perception are cleansed, you know, the universe appears as it is, infinite. And that's kind of like what we're all finding out, is it's not about piling up knowledge, it's about removing unknowledge.
Absolutely. I mean, we could leave it at that, but that's, you know, and then who was it that said that enlightenment is a destructive process? You have to destroy your beliefs, destroy your ideas, destroy the separations, destroy the illusions. And then what you're left with when everything's gone, that's the reality. That's the primal, authentic self, the original self.
Right. Call it original self, natural self, original face, naked reality.
Yeah. And it's love. I want to end on that note. It's about love, because there is, aside from all the things we talked about, the base note of the universe, I really do feel, is love.
Yes. You know, I think we agree on that. We've come to a realization that we can answer Einstein's question. The universe is friendly. And as a matter of fact, I would say, you know, that all that exists in the world, in the universe, is attraction or love. And that a trite way of saying it, the earth, there is no gravity. The earth just really loves us.
I feel that too.
And everything. We're watching everything we see, the separations and the coming together. It's the movements of love, you know. And we're seeing only a fraction of what's really going on. So all we see is things moving and stuff. God only knows what's going on. I think it's all about the movements of love.
The heart. I mean, that's one of the least mentioned of any important spiritual things. When I've been like 50 groups where they talk about mind body or mind spirit body, right? They never talk about heart and will. They say it's spirit, heart, will, and body, because heart gets left out, and it shouldn't be. So how are you going to be a spiritual person? You know, your spirit and mind are the same thing. Spirit, mind, body. So you're basically talking about the mind overriding the body and forgetting about the heart and forgetting about the emotional body, which is the will. Mm-hmm. So that's, to me, probably the biggest deficit, the biggest thing is heartlessness in the world. Underneath everything that you see that is a malady, a discord, there's heartlessness in there. And so bringing heart back is part of the deal.
Exactly.
Heart to yourself.
I think the process has opened us both up to very similar revelations. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And you've made 11 or 12 books since what, 2009? Amazing.
2013.
Yeah. That to me is like, okay, when creativity comes, when you're authentic, that well is deep.
It is. It's an amazing thing. A positive note. So much of this has been kind of dark. The fact of the matter is, there's been a progression in my own inner life, my flow, which is, oh yeah, I started out with pain and being driven by pain like everybody else and had to do something about it. And you get to a point where you start to feel like you don't have to struggle anymore and that the universe is on your side and you feel like you're kind of floating downstream. Well, it's continued even from there where I to be honest with you, I feel like I'm not just floating downstream. I feel like I'm identifying with that stream at its source, at the headwaters where it's coming up out of the ground. And it's not something I'm doing. I'm just letting it happen. And it's amazing how much is there and how much the universe will give me. I think it's kind of like a source that we all have, if we could get to it. I mean, it's, it's all there. And I think a lot of spiritual saints and so on have talked about it the same way. They've come across the same thing, and it sounds like you're coming across it too. There's a source of knowledge that's beyond the kind of scientific knowledge that we can have. That includes the scientific knowledge, though.
Knowledge you don't get in college.
Huh?
The knowledge you don't get in college.
No, you don't. But it includes it, but it just encompasses it in a bigger paradigm. I call it a cosmic overstanding. It's a perspective on things in which everything else makes sense.
Absolutely. One of the things that you learn eventually is that we're not bound by this body. We are spirit that have incarnated into this body. That's what the Tibetan Book of the Dead is all about, and to a degree what the Egyptian Book of the Dead is all about. And so as spirit, when you can connect to the spirit of the muse, which is what we're talking about, the river, the muse, and there's other people, I talk to people that they get connected from the Pleiades, or they get connected from a spirit guide or from an angel or something, and they get this information, they get this life-affirming knowledge, and they write, It's amazing, actually, to connect to the spirit world, because once you've opened up the door to your heart, to your emotions, that is the door to the spirit world and to the influx of information of higher consciousness and higher intent.
Yes. They're just doors. They're just doors to the same place. If they're going to talk about Pleiadians or whatever, they're getting information that's being channeled through the Pleiadians, but it's from the same sources we get it from Primal. When we get far enough along.
Absolutely, and that's why I will leave it at that. It's like the one of the greatest ways to come back to an authentic heart is by doing the primal work, or in some kind of a healing process that includes primal.
Yeah, most powerful thing.
I think it is most powerful. I've tried a lot, including meditation. I did meditation for 14 years, and then I had a midlife crisis. Meditation, enlightenment, kundalini, and unity consciousness does not touch your emotional issues. You can have unity consciousness. You can have your kundalini popping out of the top of your head, or you can be enlightened, head full of light, and you still have to deal with your emotional issues. Now I can tell about my experience, but I've also talked to people who had full awakening kundalini, and they had to deal with their emotional issues. Had full-blown unity consciousness, and then they couldn't relate to their wife and kids because they had emotional issues that they had to deal with. It's a completely different thing.
Yeah, we could talk forever, because I can respond to that, but we'll be here forever.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you so much, and I'll get back to you on another time. I think we should do it again.
I'd love to.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you, Michael.
This is Michael Adzema's, the author. His blogspot is sillymickle.blogspot.com, and this is his flip page. Each one of these is an article that he's written, and he has just dozens and dozens, hundreds of these things. It's pretty fantastic format, and all of it's good. Here's one from June 23rd of I suppose last year. See if I can get it to open. So he's a prolific writer, and this is one of his, I think, probably his main blog pages. I couldn't even find, he has so many, I couldn't even find them all. But texturally rich, it's a lot of words, a lot of images, a lot of ideas. This is Gonzo Sage Media, which is, I think, the landing page for his book and his company. Gonzo Sage Media is the company publishing the books and works of Michael Adzema. Come here for the new releases, and there's free books and giveaways. It's pretty nice little professional view. This is Michael Adzema's Facebook profile page. And in there it has some of his accomplishments: psychotherapist, author, journal editor, so on. And his recent post on his news feed. And he's got 4,952 friends. So he's almost at the max of 5,000. This is Michael's YouTube page. And in terms of videos, I think he's got a little over 60, like 62, 63 videos. And he's like an activist, and doesn't have a whole lot of stuff on primal therapy, but more on just the condition of the world. But it does have this really nice gem down here. What does primal therapy session really look like? Which is worth a look for sure. This is Michael Adzema, Amazon, his book page, his author page, and these are all the books that he has written to date. I think he's got like 11 of them up here, plus a couple of, I think one, at least maybe one free one, which is on his website. And it's just pretty amazing to have your own page. I mean, to have your own page on Amazon.